Warrior pose is our peak balance pose, warrior 3 that is, and we're going to be doing lots of balance poses this whole month. That's going to be the focus. So we're going to do some of this today and working on shoulder mobility. I always try to throw that in anyways because those shoulder issues are a common issue for many of us, especially as we get older. And then I'm going to try to engage the core, warm up the core, because we need a strong core to hold in warrior. And I'm going to the inner thigh muscles we need for balance poses. And then finally, obviously, the feet, the ankles, the muscles around the ankles. So I'm going to work on invigorating them also so that we can be prepared for our best possible warrior. So this is mindful yoga. So we're going to encourage everyone to just go 80% of their full ability and leave 20% in reserve. And we're going to keep stopping and tuning in and dropping in with our physical bodies so that we can decide wisely what variation to choose that will best suit our body as it shows up today. So I think the mindful attitude today that really applies to Warrior 3 is non-judgment. When we fall out of a balance pose, it's very easy to get frustrated with ourselves or judge our lack of balance. And there's lots of things that can throw our balance day to day: stress, anxiety, too much coffee in the morning. And then there's just some days where we're not as balanced. So I invite you to be playful with the balance poses this month. And if we fall out of them, we just think, wow, I challenged myself, isn't that great? And then slowly go back into it. Balance also takes a lot of patience, which is a mindful attitude. The number one reason why people fall out of their balance poses is if they rush into them. So we're going to try to enter them slowly, and if we fall out, we're going to re-enter them very slowly. And we're going to try to exit the pose slowly also. So that's another characteristic, I guess, of mindful yoga, is just slowing it all down a little bit so that our body has time to give us feedback. All right, we're going to start lying down. So if you have 2 blocks, if you don't worry. But if you have 2 blocks and you want to open up your pectoral muscles because you feel like they're tight, you can put the lower edge between your shoulder blades and the medium edge underneath your head. Right? And you can use books, like you can get a book and duct tape it like a hardcover book and make your own blocks. So you don't have to order them on Amazon Prime. If you do, get the spongy ones, not the wooden ones, because they're more comfortable. All right, so if you don't have blocks, don't worry about it. Just lie in Shavasana. So as you can see, I've got my head on the medium edge and my shoulder blades on the lowest edge. And I like my arms in cactus arms, but for some people, they can't get their elbows on the floor in cactus arms, in which case I invite you to do A-frame arms. So just wiggle around and decide. And we'll make the transition from our morning into our yoga class. And just slowing it all down a bit as we lie here in immortal pose. Just dropping into physical sensations, meeting our body as it shows up today in the yoga class, and being really curious about what's percolating up in our bodies this morning so that we can attend and befriend it. And if there's an area that's asking for our attention, maybe it's feeling a little tight, or it's a part of your body that's a little irritated this morning, or maybe something that's kind of pulsing or throbbing, any of those sensations that might be percolating up. Making a resolve to be extra compassionate with those areas in our bodies that need our compassion and attention. And next, checking in with our mood this morning. How are we feeling? I'm not judging the mood in any way, just being curious about it. And then the mind stuff. Did you find you were very easily able to settle into the present moment, or is your mind quite interested in something that's happening later? Or is the mind looping on something that happened earlier, maybe this morning or this week? And just observing all that, and mind will keep wandering throughout the class. That's normal. But when we catch it wandering, we're going to invite it back to the yoga practice, back to our bodies, back to our breath. So speaking of breath, what is the quality of your breath right now? And noticing how just pausing to observe the breath sometimes automatically changes the way we breathe, the quality of the breath. And then going from breath awareness to breath control, slipping into the 3-part breath. And in an ideal world, we will use this 3-part breath throughout the whole yoga class. But our mind wanders and we forget about it. So I'll remind you from time to time to come back to the 3-part breath. So breathing into the belly, the side ribs, the heart area. And then a nice, slow exhale. And you're going to repeat that a few times more. And see if you can make the exhales a little slower than the inhales, as that usually has a calming effect on the body. So we're just retraining our bodies how to breathe more efficiently, more productively. Three more breaths here before we start to layer movement into the breath. And then we're slowly, if you're lying on blocks, slowly removing the blocks, perhaps rolling onto your side to remove them. And then lying on the floor and starting to stretch in any way that you feel like you need to stretch. So just pretend you're waking up to your new day. How do you stretch when you're in bed in the morning? Just squirming around in your body a little. And then waking up the feet, pointing and flexing the feet a few times. And Charlie Chaplin, Pigeon Toes. So there's 2 ways to do windshield wipers. One is when the toes come in together and then they fall out apart. And we're getting a bit of internal and external rotation of the hip this way. The other way to do windshield wipers is to drop the feet in the same direction one way and in the same direction the other way. And then some circles perhaps with your feet one way, the other way. You can do flutter boards, like you're in a lake on a flutter board. And then the last one is Barbie foot. I'm going to ask you to do a Barbie foot in warrior. So Barbie foot is when you push out through your big toe mound. So the heel pushes out, but the big toe mound pushes out, and then your toes kind of spread apart a little bit. And just hold that for a second and just notice how that feels when you do the Barbie foot. And then release and shake it out. All right, so we're just gonna wake up the arms. We're gonna inhale the arms up, back and down. Keep the arms in their sockets and don't bring them right to the floor because the shoulders will probably kick in before that anyways and say, hey, this is enough sensation. For me, it's about an inch above the floor. For other people, it might be 6 inches. If you're hypermobile, your thumbs can easily, your hands can easily fall to the ground, but I'm going to ask you to bring them an inch above the ground at least so that we can use the muscle strength of our arms a little bit. And then back up. So we're just going to do that a few more times, and then we're going to add a block to it or a book. And if you don't, you can pretend you have a book between your hands, just warming that up a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my block. And I'm going to squeeze it between my palms. My arms are nicely in my shoulders. I'm going to drop those arms back and behind until my shoulders tell me to stop. And then inhale the arms back up. So squeezing the block. That also engages the arm muscles. So I like to exhale going down and inhale going up. And one more time. And release. All right, let's wake up those arms a little more and the hips and the lower spine. So bending the knees now, bringing the feet to the outer edges of your mat, grabbing your opposite elbows. The knees are going to drop one way and the elbows are going to drop the other way. And then we're going to inhale back up. Your head falls in the direction of your elbows, not your knees. And if you have lower back issues, the rule with spinal twist is to go just 50% of your full range. Just little mini spinal twist, because sometimes it can irritate the lower back if that's a sensitive area for you. And besides, we're warming up, so we don't need to go into anything too deeply yet. All right, and then bringing the legs into the air, our first little hamstring stretch. The knees can be bent or the legs can be straight. And then you can pump a little bit where you bend one knee and the other. The foot is flexed. And then just taking a snapshot of your flexibility. And we're going to do a few little exercises and we'll come back to it. So what should I start with? Okay, let's grab the strap and put it around our ball joints of our feet and start at a 45-degree angle, and then legs are straight here, so it might be less than a 45 degree, maybe moving up towards a 90 degree, and at some point your knees are going to want to bend, and then we're going to stop at that point and take a snapshot. So it might be here, it might be here. If you're super flexible, it might be an angle that's less than 90 degrees. So just take that little snapshot, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a few warm-ups and we'll see if we can kind of improve that flexibility. All right, so one thing that we're going to do is, so take that strap aside a little bit, is we're going to engage the quadriceps, which help loosen the hamstrings. So place the hands on the knees and then push one knee into one hand and release. And then push the other knee into the other hand and release. So we're engaging the leg muscles here, which will get the hamstrings to ultimately release and relax. And then notice how your core is kicking, your abdominals are kicking in here also. So your lower abdominals, you might feel them here. And we need our abdominals for the warrior 3 pose that we're going to do today. So this is also preparing us for that. Okay, so now let's stretch out the hamstring a little more aggressively, grabbing your strap again, putting around the big tall ball joint, and then you're just going to bend and straighten the leg a few times. Bend and straighten. That just alerts the hamstrings that a deeper stretch is coming up. So when we go in and out of a pose a few times before we hold it, it actually helps facilitate that pose. And then there's something called ballistic stretching. It's just a little more rapid. It's like butterfly wings and cobbler. So you're just kind of pulsing in and out of it. So you might be pulsing at a 45-degree angle, a 90-degree angle. Good. And then just grabbing that strap, letting the leg fall open to the side. If you want the psoas stretch in the opposite leg, you can extend both legs and Barbie foot both legs, stretching it through the big toe mound. So the big toe mound is going to be really important in all balance poses. If we put too much weight on the baby toe mound, it supinates the ankles and we can fall out of the pose. So the big toe mound is like the brain of the foot. It's really what helps balance us in balance poses. I'm really going to emphasize the big toe mound today. All right, and then inhaling that leg up and switching feet. So we're going to just bend and straighten a few times. And then we're going to pulse, little baby pulses, ballistic stretching. And then we're going to hold for 3 breaths. And then we're going to let that leg float open to the side to stretch out the adductors as well as the hamstrings. And you're going to breathe into that stretch. And then you're going to inhale that leg up. And now we're going to put both legs in. And so one thing, we're going to do the final screenshot, but before we do that, I'm going to ask you to pull up on your kneecaps and engage the quad muscles, the thigh muscles, and breathe into it. Do your 3-part breath here, because sometimes when we engage a muscle, we stop breathing. And then release. And now see if you can go into a deeper hamstring stretch. So your legs are going to be straight. So start at the 45-degree angle. And then on the inhale, slowly bring it up, 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 up. Keep the legs straight because we're going to do the screenshot. And then just see if you're able to make a little bit of progress by an inch or 2. And then take a breath. So I made about a 2-inch gain for me, and some days there's no gains and sometimes there is, but there's little tricks we can do to improve our flexibility. Okay, so let's hug our knees to our chest now. So people with back pain, this is a really usually soothing posture. And so you can hug your knees. Some people are able to grab their opposite elbows. That requires a lot of hip flexion. No, it's not available to everyone. It also requires a lot of knee flexion. So do you want to just hold on to your knees? Do you want to hug your knees tighter? And then if you rock side to side, it massages the muscles of your lower back. So this is a good one to do at night before you go to sleep, or any time where you feel your back is holding tension. Good. And then one leg is going to Extend, and the other knee is going to bend. The leg that's extending is getting a hamstring, psoas stretch. And if it's too much psoas stretch, you can keep both knees bent, all right? So we're building, we're working on hip flexion and knee flexion. If it's too much knee flexion, grab the back of the thigh instead. This is wind relieving posture. We're massaging our organs here also by pressing the thigh into our lower torso. And then if we want to wake up the abdominals, we flex the extended leg, we raise the heel an inch off the ground, and then we look up at our foot. So now you'll notice that the abdominals are working here. So if it's too much, then you can put your head back on the ground and just keep the heels raised an inch off the ground. And then release, and then let that knee go out to the side like a chicken wing. So we're externally rotating that hip. And then release. Okay, we're going to do the other side. So interlocking the fingers either around the knee or the back of the thigh, hugging that knee into the left, or sorry, whatever armpit you're on. For me, it's left, but it might be right for you. And just noticing, does one hip have a little more mobility than the other hip? And being curious about that without judgment. If you want the abdominal workout, you flex the extended leg. You raise that heel an inch off the ground. If your abdominals are working hard enough, don't do anything more. If you want to work them a little more, bring the head up and look at those toes. And this is a good place to practice 3-part breath because we have a tendency to hold our breath when we do abdominal work or any core work. And then slowly release the head back down, the foot back down, and let that chicken wing, that leg, fall to the side to externally rotate that hip. And then breathe into the sensation, whatever sensation is percolating up right now. And bring that leg up and stretching out that leg and just kind of checking in with the hips. So we're doing a lot with the hips there. How are the hips feeling? All right, next, working on more core strength because for the warrior 3, we need to use our glutes, we need to use abdominals, and we need to use our lower back muscles. So I want to start to wake all that up. So we're going to do variations of bridge pose. So the hands are out in an A frame with the palms up. I like the palms up because that brings the shoulder blades closer together. I'm also going to ask you to pull the shoulder blades down your back towards your hips. You want, remember I've talked about this before, but you want that C7 vertebrae, that's like 7 vertebrae down from your skull. You don't, it's a bone that sticks out and you don't want it pressing into the floor when we do bridge. All right, we'll do some warm-ups, spread all the toes wide apart, and the toe mound, the big toe mound in particular, is pressing into the floor, the heels are pressing into the floor, and then I want you to engage the glutes to bring the hips up. We underuse our glutes, and that's why I like to engage them in bridge pose. Not every instructor gives that cue, but it's why I give the cue. And then release back down. A lot of time we overuse our back muscles and underuse our glute muscles, especially when we climb up stairs and do squats. So let's do that a few more times, using the glute strength, the buttock strength to get you up, and then exhaling back down. So to get up, the glutes engage, we get up, and now I'm going to ask the hamstrings to kick in. So when you're in bridge, see if you can energetically pull those heels towards the top of the mat, and that's going to fire up the hamstrings. And then back down. Let's do that one more time. Big toe mound of the foot presses into the floor, the heel presses into the floor, the glutes engage. Pull your pelvis up, and now the heels pretend that they're dragging along the floor towards your head to engage the hamstrings. Take a breath here, and then come back down. Now we're going to use the arms. If you have a block, grab one. If you don't worry about it. What we're going to do is we're going to raise our arms to the sky. We're going to squeeze the block, pretend we're squeezing the block. We're going to do the same thing now, but the arms are going to drop back down as our hips come up. And then exhaling back down. We're going to do that a few more times. Feet press in, engage the glutes, arms firmly in the shoulders as the arms go back. They're not going to go all the way to the floor. And exhale back to neutral. Let's do that one more time. Squeezing the block. Hips come up. And now keep the hips up as you bring the block back up. If you have a block, you can put the low end or the medium end under your sacrum. And you can just take a breath here. If you don't have a block, you have to use your glute strength to hold you up. Or of course, you can take a break if you need the break. So this is a very gentle back bend. And if you have back issues, this is a safe back bend for most people to do. So you're in a very mild back bend here. All right. So I'm going to take the block away for camaraderie for people that don't have blocks. It'll be way more work. If you do have the block, keep it there. If you want to kind of use your glute strength more, challenge yourself, take the block away. We're going to do a figure 4 bridge pose. So one ankle is going to cross over the other ankle. That bent knee of the figure 4 is going to drop towards the floor, and I'm getting a deep external rotation to my hip. I'm really feeling that in my hip. So once again, you can do this with the hips on the ground. If this is more than you want to do today, here's one way of doing figure 4. Or you lift the hips up, or you put a block under your sacrum. So lots of variations. Choose the one that you would like to choose this morning that's most pleasing for your body. And then release. And you're going to try the other side. So on the floor, raised, with block, without block. And then slowly come out of the pose. All right, so we're going to do one more strengthener, and since I have a few people who've been telling me about back problems, I really want to work on strengthening the buttock muscles so that they can take some of the load off your back. And so it's just reteaching our bodies to use the buttock muscles. Okay, so option A, take a break. Option B, come up, put a block under your sacrum. Option C, the glute workout. You're going to extend one leg so that it's at a 45-degree angle. It's not higher than the other thigh. It's not lower than the other thigh. It's parallel to the other thigh. And then bend that knee back down and bring both hips up. As soon as we kick out that 45-degree angle, the hips drop. So when we come back down, we have to pop the hips back up. So you'll notice that when you stretch out one leg, the opposite glute muscle has to fire up to hold you up there. And then release, squeeze both glutes, kick out the leg. One glute is working super hard. Bend the knee, squeeze both glutes back up. So we're just doing an alternating, all right? Check in with your back. How's it going? Do you need to take a break? What's your energy level? Do you need to take a break? Do you want to keep going? Are you feeling very strong today? You want more? The final variation is to lower the heel an inch off the ground, bring it back up, then bend it, pick the hips up, extend the other leg, dip it down, bring it back up, bend the knee, bring both hips up. All right, so play with this, try different variations and just see what really works for your body. Where are you feeling it? Is it too much? Is it too little? We'll do one more round. And you can cut out early at any time that your body needs a break. And so, because we were doing back extends here, this was a very, mild back bend. We're using the glutes a lot. Now we want to stretch out the back. So we're just going to go back into that knee hug. So when we contract muscles, we want to balance it by stretching them afterwards. And rocking side to side. Now, since I'm here, I'm going to do laughing baby. I really like this pose. So you can grab onto your calves, or you can use a strap around your feet. Some people are able to wrap their fingers around the outside of the feet, or you can use your strap like this. And then just rocking side to side. So remember, lots of variations here. Oh. Good. And let's go on to our side. I want to work the adductor muscles because we need those to do warrior. So if you have a block, put it under your head. If you don't have a block, use your hand. If you have a pillow, use a pillow. If you have a book, use a book. Because we want the head in line with the spine. All right, clam pose. I am really into this clam pose last month. And my hips know it because I can already feel my glutes firing up here. So the knees are bent, and then we inhale the knee up and back down. Let's throw the arm in. So this is yoga for the brain. So the elbows kind of around the hip area. As the knee comes up, the elbows come, the hand comes down. So cactus arm coming up and down in the opposite direction of the knee. Good. All right, now we're going to raise the knee and the ankle is going to stay where it is, and the knee is going to dive down, kiss the other knee, and then come back up. So that upper ankle kind of stays where it is roughly. It's just the knee that's opening and closing. So we were externally rotating the hip, now we're internally rotating it. Good. And then we're going to straighten the leg underneath. I'm going to put the block under the bent knee that's in front of me. I'm going to use my hand as my pillow. All right. That leg that's underneath and straightened, we're going to flex that leg, flex that foot, that ankle, and then we're going to inhale the leg a few inches up the ground, and then exhale, release. Inhale the leg up off the ground, exhale, release. Go maybe a little slower than you would like to, using the 3-part breath to get you up and get you back down. Now, if you want to make this a little more challenging, you can try it with both legs straight, flexing, squeezing together, inhale the leg. And I have to use my hand in front of me for balance here. And then with this one, I can feel my obliques kicking in, the abdominal muscles at my side body. And release, lying on our back, putting the block between our knees, arms out in a T, squeezing the block. If you don't have a block, just squeeze your knees together. And so this is clam in the ocean. The block is the pearl. You're squeezing the pearl, and the waves push you one way and the other. So we're really firing up the internal and external obliques in our side body here. And we also need those to stabilize us in the Warrior 3 pose. That is our peak pose today. Now, if you squeeze that block, it's firing up the adductor muscles also. Adductor muscles are muscles of our inner thigh that allow us to squeeze our legs together. And one more round. And rolling over to the other side. All right, I'm gonna get that block ready for my knee later. So clam pose on the other side. So the knees are bent and the ankles are touching, and we inhale the knee up and exhale it back down. Now put your hand on your hip. The hip is not moving, so it's not this motion where you're rolling back and forth, all right? So hand on the hip stays stable, the clam opening might not be as big, and then exhale back down, okay? So the hip is stationary. Now we're gonna put the elbow close to that hip in a cactus arm. The cactus swings closed and then open in the opposite direction as the knee. Drop into that 3-part breath. Coordinate movement with breath in some way. All right. So next, that was external rotation of the hip. Now we're going to work on internal rotation of the hip. You're going to raise that knee. It's, I don't know, 1.5 feet from the ground. And then the ankle kind of stays up in the sky, but the knee dives down and kisses the other knee. And then comes back up. And I'm going to try to slow it down a little because slower makes it a little harder. And I'm going to sequence my breath with it. One more, dive down and release. That upper knee is going to rest on my block. If you don't have a block, maybe a cushion or some other object. If not, then it won't hurt us for a few rounds, but just don't sleep like this. All right, so the leg that's extended is flexed, and on the inhale, we use the adductor muscles of that leg to raise the leg, and on the exhale, release. The adductors are working on the exhale too, because they're fighting on gravity so that your foot doesn't just fall to the floor, right? So they're working a little more on the up, but they're still working on the down. Now remember, if you wanted more, you can always squeeze those legs together and bring them both up at the same time. One more time. You can hold here for a breath if you want. And release. We're going to roll onto our back. And we have to get ourselves up to seated. So you can decide, do you want to just roll to your side and use your hands, or do you want to join me in some spinal rocks? So they don't feel good for everyone. If you have osteoporosis, it's contraindicated. And popping up. All right, we were working those adductor muscles, the inner thigh muscles a lot, so I want to stretch them out by doing Cobbler Pose. If you know that you're tight in this area, practice self-compassion and sit on a block. So if your knees are really high like this, it means you're tight, which is fine, but sit on a block, it's just more comfortable. All right. And decide how close do you want to get those knees to your groin. Like you can shimmy in a little bit, but you don't want to be rounding your back here. So we want to have that back, the spine elongated, all right? And then this is ballistic stretching. It's just kind of when you butterfly in and out of a pose rapidly, and that alerts the muscles that they're going in for a deeper stretch. And the other thing to get our muscles to relax is to contract them. So we're going to push the elbows into the knees into the elbows, and we're going to do a 3-part breath here. All right, so really keep going. One more breath. We're really engaging those adductor muscles one last time, and that should get them to release a little more. And you're done. All right, some more butterflies. So if you're super tight and you're not sitting on a block, the other thing to do is come back here. So now, like, my spine's really nice and elongated. Way easier. Does this feel better? Does this feel better? Or are you super mobile in the hip area and you want to go into a forward bend a little bit? But the problem with the forward bend is I often see the spine rounding. So we want to try to train that spine to stay elongated for good posture. And also if you have osteopenia, osteoporosis, you want to avoid rounding of the back. All right. Good. And release. So side, I just want to wake up the internal obliques just a little more. Palms up, you can rest your hands on the top of your head, and you're just going to dip down to one side, inhale back up, and dip down to the other side. So the internal external obliques are getting you up and down. Now, we're not going to collapse and crunch. Instead, imagine you're coming up over a beach ball. And then inhale back up. So not collapsing into those side ribs, kind of stretching up and over the beach ball and coming back up. Good. And then release, bringing the legs out, bending one knee, sitting up nice and tall and straight. If it's hard because of your hip flexor, so sometimes for people, this is a challenging pose and they end up coming here or they end up rounding their back. If that's you, I recommend you kind of give yourself some wall support. So you're sitting up nice and tall and straight, and then you're twisting to the side of the bent knee and using your internal obliques, the external obliques to do it on one side, the internal obliques are working on the other. Breathe. And release back to neutral. We'll try the other side. So using a wall or not a wall. Sitting up nice and tall and straight. And then on the exhale, go into that twist. Shoulders pulled down and back, reaching through the crown. So one thing you never want to do in a twist is curl your spine. It's really important in any twist to keep a nice elongated spine. So please use that wall if you need to keep the spine from rounding. And release. All right. Let me just wake up those shoulders a little bit more. We're going to go into Cactus Arms. We're going to squeeze those cactus arms closed. Feel how your shoulder blades have protracted. They've become wider apart. And now when you open them, feel how the shoulder blades behind you come closer together and then the pec muscles stretch out. So exhale, close. Strengthening the pec muscles. On the inhale, you're stretching the pectoral muscles. Good. And then next, from Cactus Arms, we're going to go into W arms. And then inhale up. Maybe our hands will touch, maybe they won't. Exhale back to W arms. So let's just do that a few more times. Trying to get mobility in our shoulders. All right, and then since we're up here, let's bend one elbow, press the head against the back of our hand, and then you're gonna bend away from the bent elbow. So whatever side the higher bent elbow is, you're gonna bend away from it. And inhale up. All right, switch to the other elbow. And then bending away from that higher elbow. Take a breath. And come up. All right, finally, Yoga Mudra, one of my favorite posture poses. You can interlock your fingers and lock out your arms. Not everyone can lock out their arms because the way their arm sits in their shoulder socket, so that's what the strap is for. Inhale up, exhale, you can stay here, or you can start to come into a little bit of a forward bend as the arms raise up. Just notice you might start to feel out in your hips or your knees a little also. Take a 3-part breath here. And release. And then counter stretch here. The arm comes over and across one way. Over and across the other way. Good. So I'm going to ask you to come on to tabletop. We're going to do our neck circles in tabletop. All right, so strong base. The wrists are about an inch wider than your shoulders. Fingers are wide apart. The wrist creases are in line with the top of the mat. The thumb and forefinger press into the floor a little more than the outside of the hand. And there's a slight micro bend in your elbows. So you don't want to have those elbows totally hyperextended and locked with the creases pointing at the front of the mat. You want those elbow creases at a roughly 45-degree angle. So joint safety first. All right, from here, we're going to do our head rolls. So this is a really safe way for people to do head rolls, because it's hard to hyperextend the neck too much here. It's a little bit of an extension of the neck is good, but too much is not good. So just kind of rolling one way, rolling the other way, and just being curious about your neck this morning. All right, and then I want to stretch out the wrists. So we're going to point, those fingers are pointing towards the top of the mat, and then see how much you can rotate one hand. So I'm pretty mobile, so my fingers can point towards my knees. Not everyone can do that. So they might point at a 45-degree angle. So basically you're rotating that wrist around, and then if I pull away, I can feel the stretch up along my forearm here, okay? And then back to 12 o'clock. So then the other hand rotates out to the side of the mat and keeps rotating, rotating, rotating until your wrist says, hey, that's enough. And when it says it's enough, then you can add a little more sensation by kind of pulling away from that wrist. So my hips are moving towards the back of my mat, and all of a sudden I feel that stretch running up the inside of my arm, my forearm. Good. If you want to do that one more time, you can alternate, or you can try doing both at the same time. You know your wrists. If you have wrist issues, like carpal tunnel, you might want to skip this all together and instead just do something like this, like figure eights or blinking lights or shaking them out. So if this is too much for you, check in with those wrists and don't do this variation. All right. Next, we're going to just wake up that core a little bit by tucking the toes under and bringing the knees up. Now, I know that there's people with wrist issues, and so if you have two blocks, you can put your elbows on the blocks and do the pose this way, okay? If you don't have blocks and you have wrist issues, you can still just use your arms, that's fine. So we're just going to, and here, if you want, you can do what's called a breath of fire. So it's just rapid exhales through the mouth or nose. It sounds like this. Or, and release. Let's do a little downward puppy stretch, wag the tail. And then here in tabletop, just move around for a few breaths any way you want. So just stretch it out. We were working the core here. Let's take a break. And we're going to go into next pointer dog to wake up that core. I'm really working on the core today because I know how important it is to do warrior 3 to have a strong core. If your knees are starting to get cranky, you can put the double fold in the mat and place your knees on the double fold. All right, so pointer dog. Once again, if you have wrist issues, maybe get 2 blocks, put your elbow on the 2 blocks. All right, so I'll do the block. All right, so if your elbows are on a block, put the opposite arm out and the opposite leg goes out. All right, so we're going to pull the leg into its socket. We're going to put the arm into its socket. We're going to pull up through our belly button, have a nice strong core. Do a Barbie foot with that back leg. So we're practicing a Barbie foot for warrior. And just take some breaths here. 3-part breath. How are you doing? Take a break when you need to take a break. So the other thing is you can just do the leg first, bring it down, then do the arm for a breath, bring it down, then do the leg. So you don't have to do them together at the same time. You can alternate. You can modify this however you need to modify it. Careful you're not collapsing into your shoulders so the arms are firmly in their sockets. Your belly button is pulling up into your spine. That back foot is flexed. The front fingers are stretching out. And release. All right, we're going to do the other side. So the other elbow's on blocks or not. So let's start with that. Bring the arm up, bring it back down, bring the back leg up, bring it back down. Do you want to just keep alternating? Do you want to bring them both up at the same time? So you decide. So whatever you've decided, pull the arm bone into its shoulder socket, pull the thigh bone into the hip socket, flex that back foot, especially that big toe mound pushing out. So this is similar to Warrior 3 pose, except we would have both arms out. So this is kind of a Warrior 3. So for people who don't want to do our balance pose Warrior 3, I would just say do this. Keep doing Hunter Dog because it's kind of like Warrior 3. It's using the same muscles, but it's not a balance pose. And then release and come back down. All right, so it's that time, our peak pose. How am I going to get you up? I'm going to go into, it's called garland pose, but I call it praying frog. So your toes tuck under, you walk your hands back, you bring your knees out to the side, and bring your hands to your chest. Now, for some people, this is not accessible because there's a lot of flexion in the knee here. So the other way to do it is like this, like a chair pose, but with the knees out. All right, so this is a hip opener. You kind of push a lot of the external rotation of the hip and stretching of the inner thigh. So variation 1, variation 2. The next thing is we're going to use the strength of our thigh muscles to inhale us up. And the slower you go, the harder it is. Not rounding the back, trying to avoid rounding the back. I know that's hard. And then coming back up. Warrior pose. I'll get my chair ready in case I want to use the chair. Okay, so I'm going to give lots of variations so that you're going to choose the one that's safe for you. So if you have back issues, then you're just going to be extra gentle with yourself. You can go back onto your hands and knees and do the hunter dog that we were doing. Or you can probably do the TikTok version. All right, so we're going to, on the inhale, bring our arms up, put them back in their sockets. Maybe I'll do this in profile, okay? And then we're going to step out with one foot, come onto the ball joint, and then back off. All right, so this is just called tick-tock. We tick, and we talk. Tick, talk. And really feel that big toe mound pushing into the floor. That's your key to balance, is that big toe mound. All right. So that's the feel. We're going to do the next one with our hands at our heart because that's less on the back. So we're going to tick and talk, but each time we're going to talk a little deeper. So Come in a little deeper. All right, and then I'm gonna go in for the hold. So the arms pull back into their shoulders, bring the shoulder blades in a little closer together. Barbie foot that back raised leg. So you can see how the back is really kicking in now. So is that too much? Do you need to come out of it? Do you need to go back into TikToks? I've also noticed my back leg, my back hip of the extended leg is really raised up. I'm gonna drop it. Ooh, that was hard. I lost balance, but I'm gonna go back in. So it's really easy to let that back leg hip pop up to the sky. I'm gonna pull up in my belly button, shoulders firmly, arms firmly in their sockets, and I need a break, so I'm gonna come out. That's variation 1 with the arms. Variation 2 is airplane arms. Bring the arms out to the side. So once again, you can just do TikTok today. If your back is talking to you and saying, I've had enough, I'm checking out, you're just gonna do the TikToks. All right? If you wanna go in for the hold, you're very slowly, spread all the toes apart. Push the big toe mound into the floor. Start to straighten that standing leg, and you come down into the airplane. You're looking down at your mat. Your arms are pulling into their sockets. Your belly button pulls up into the spine. The raised hip lowers. Barbie foot of the back foot, and release. I really feel my glute muscles working. Okay, so we're gonna do one more round on this side. Traditional warrior is arms over the head. So that's a lot on the back, and it's also harder to balance. So do you want to even try out this variation? Ask yourself, do you want to do an earlier variation? And the trick to balance, remember, is going in slow. My big toe mound is pushing into the floor. My heel is firmly in the floor. My arms are pulling into my sockets. My thigh bone is pulling into its socket. I'm pulling my belly button up towards the spine, and I'm dropping the hip of the back leg. Ooh, lots to think about. 3-part breath. And coming out the way we came in. All right, we've got the other side to do. All right, so this will probably go a little faster because I've given all the variations. Now here's where a wall and a chair can also help. Your balance is really off today. Don't worry about the balance, just focus on the strengthening. Use the chair. I'm not really having to balance, but I'm still working on strengthening the glute muscles, the arm muscles. So use a wall, use the chair if that's what you need today. All right, so you probably decided whether you want your hands at the heart, whether you want the arms out at the side, or whether you have a super strong back and a super strong core and you're gonna go for the arms out in front of you. So you decide. I'll choose variation 2. And now we're gonna TikTok with the other leg. So I'm gonna do a few warm-up TikToks. I'm gonna really think about that big toe mound. And then each time I'm gonna TikTok a little deeper. And then I'm gonna decide when I'm ready to come up for the hold, and I might not wanna come up for the hold. So you guys hold if you wanna hold. I'm gonna go through the cues. Arms pull into the socket. Thigh bones pull into their socket so that the joints are pulling into each other. Belly button pulls up into the back. You don't want your back to collapse here. Big toe mound pushes into the floor. Three-part breath. So I'm looking down at the floor because I don't want to hyperextend my neck. I want my neck vertebrae in line with the rest of my spine. I'm doing a Barbie foot with that back foot pushing through the big toe mound, pulling up on the belly button. And just check in, what's working right now? What can you really feel working hard for you right now? And then coming back up And shaking it all out. All right, wow, that was hard work. My glutes are on fire. All right, and just a little sway side to side to release the spine. Those back muscles are working hard. Good. The quads were working hard, so I want to stretch those out. Grabbing one ankle, you can hold on to the wall if you need. And not arching the back. Careful, it's easy to arch the back here. So pull the belly button in and pull the heel towards your buttock and feel that quad being stretched out on the other side. Good, release. All right, so I'm gonna get you back on the floor. Decide how you want to go back. You can come back the way you came up, which is to go into a praying frog pose and then just roll back onto your buttocks. Or you can get back onto the floor however you need to get back on the floor. All right, let's just close out with a little forward bend. So getting that strap. So our hamstrings were working, so I just want to release them now. Okay, our buttocks were working, so I want to release them. We're going to lie down, knees are bent. We're going to cross one ankle over the knee. We're going to raise the knees up. And you can just hold here. You don't have to do anything else, but maybe you can feel kind of the buttock being stretched, the piriformis being stretched. If you want more sensation in the buttock area, bring your hand through the donut hole, meet it with the other hand behind your thigh, pull that thigh closer. And with the elbow pressing into the other thigh, push the other thigh away. So just play around with it, just squirm around, go one way or the other. What do you need to do to give yourself more sensation? What do you need if you need less sensation? So just play a little bit here. And just breathe into whatever tightness might be showing up right now. And then switch sides. So variation one is is one foot on the floor. Variation two is that heel comes up. Variation three is the hands we threw to clasp behind the thigh and pull that thigh closer as the elbow pushes the other thigh further away. So you're making a letter 4 with your legs. So you're clasping the leg that's kind of further away from you. So think of the leg with the heel that's furthest from your body. That's the leg that you're clasping behind. Someone has the wrong leg clasped. Okay, good. And then release. And just windshield wipers going side to side. I always like to end with a very gentle spinal twist to reset the spine. And then coming into chair, doing a flutter board like this, because our ankles were working really hard in the balance pose. So I just want to shake out those calves that were working hard, and I want to shake out those ankles that were working hard. And the tops of the feet, all those things, good. And then dead bug, the arms go up and everything's just wiggling and shaking. So shaking is a really good way to release tension in our body. Great. And then the real peak pose, Shavasana, immortal pose. Bringing the shoulder blades in a little closer together, good posture, even in resting poses. The crown of the head reaches up, so the back of the top of your head kind of stretches out, the chin tucks in 0.5 centimeter, get some traction in your neck. Palms are up or hands are on your body somehow that feels soothing to you. Your back is tender, constructive pose, knees are bent, and knees come in towards each other. So choose a pose that's comfortable, or you might want to go into fetal position. You might want to do this final rest in a seated pose. What would make you happy right now? So just check in with yourself, your beating heart, your breath. How are you doing right now? How was that for you today? And without judging anything, just gathering all that information that was being transmitted to you, observing it with kind curiosity, and then letting it all go. Just letting it all go. That class is over. And right now we're going to make the transition into relaxation. And you're going to choose your anchor today so that when your mind wanders, you're going to come back home to your anchor. Is your anchor going to be the breath today? Is your anchor going to be physical sensation in your body? Exploring that, starting with the head, working your way down to your feet, or vice versa. Is your anchor going to be sound? Or a saying that you're going to say over and over to yourself? For example, I am calm, I am relaxed, or any other saying. And just notice how, even after a few breaths, the mind wanders, the attention wanders. But like we've been strengthening the muscles of our body, we're going to strengthen the muscle of attention by bringing it back to our anchor when it wanders. Where is your attention now? If it's wandered, invite it back to homecoming, back to the home of your anchor. Just going to take a few more breaths here before we transition into baby pose. I invite you to really savor these breaths, grateful for the breath. It's medicine for our body. And then taking a slightly deeper breath, just wiggling a little bit, squirming a little in your body, getting used to the idea of transitioning into baby pose, rolling onto your right side, or if you prefer, your left side. And making a smile with your body in baby pose. And if you get your face to smile, it releases the muscles in your face. And just dropping in to the inner silence, the inner stillness. And if it didn't show up for you today, that's all right. It's there waiting for you another time. And then transitioning into seated pose, maybe stretching that upper arm up to the sky. And then using the hands to push into the floor and very gently get yourself up. And bringing your hands to your heart, making a flame with your hands. Compare how you feel now to the beginning of class, physically, emotionally, mentally. Inhale the final yogic stretch up to the sky. And when you exhale, see yourself healthy, happy, peaceful, not judging yourself, not judging others. That's our theme for today, non-judgment. And give yourself a big bow. Thank your body. And I thank you for showing up and helping make the world more peaceful through our yoga practice.